Dear all, there is a feedback form in your delegate kit. Request you to please fill it up and we will be collecting the same at the end of the session. Moving on, I would like to invite Mr. Shekhar Jitkar, publisher and chief editor of Efficient Manufacturing magazine, to moderate a panel discussion on roadmap for automotive suppliers, faster innovation, integrated manufacturing, and program planning and execution. Over to you, sir.
Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to moderate today's panel discussion on this very interesting and apt topic for today's competitive world. That's the roadmap for automotive suppliers. The topics along with this which we are touching upon is faster innovation, integrated manufacturing, and program planning and execution. So with this, I would like to invite our panelists today on the dais. Mr. Sri Krishna Joshi, the director of Akash Precision. Mr. Kedar Deshpande, managing director of Uma Sons Auto Compo. Mr. Ravindra Kharul, Chief Technology Officer, Endurance Technologies. Mr. Javed Ahmed, Managing Director of Perkins India. There is one more panelist, Mr. MP Kulkarni. He just messaged me that he's on his way. Maybe we can expect him next 10 minutes. You can sit here. So I thank all the panelists for taking out their time and making it to the event. I'm sure their experience and their thoughts and their observations on this topic will definitely help us, all of us, the auto component manufacturers. Whatever audience we have today, the panel discussion will be of interest to them, of course. But we are taking this to a wider audience all over India through our magazine. My editorial team will be reporting on this panel discussion in our magazine. And the video of the discussion will be uploaded. Video of the discussion will also be uploaded on the website. So I have all the auto component manufacturers with me as the panelist. Of course, I will refer Mr. Javed Ahmed as from representing the OEM, as his experience in Tata Motors will help us to understand the requirements from the OEM point of view. I would also like to call upon Mr. Sachin Sanghi, who is the Director of Portfolio Development in Siemens, to join us as a panelist, who will give us the view from other side, from Siemens side, who will be giving us the solutions for faster innovation, integrated manufacturing, and program planning and execution. So once again, thanks to all the panelists. To start with, as Mrs. Kelkar mentioned about the importance of innovation, it's the innovative world, it's the innovative manufacturing, and unless you have innovation, you won't get a place in the world. So not just in the domestic industry point of view, also from the world point of view, because the global industry needs innovation. And as you mentioned about the VUCA world, because the world is currently volatile, uncertain, there is lots of things happening all over the world, whether it's in terms of change in the manufacturing paradigm or change in the manufacturing processes, change in the customization, change in the requirements from OEMs or any other manufacturer. Earlier the shop floors used to be very dirty, dangerous and dull. But today's manufacturing, today's shop floors have become more clean, safe and smart. So we need to understand how the trend is going globally, not just from Indian point of view. And if you want to catch up with the global trend, you need to be with the global world of manufacturing, for which innovation is the most important thing. What the manufacturer thinks of today, what are the challenges? How can I get to the market quicker? Number one. Number two, how do I address the global competition? Number three, what are the process implications of globally dispersed customers and suppliers? Number four, how can my company be both low cost at the same time high quality? Number five, how can we deal with rising and more complex compliance requirements? So these are the in general challenges for every manufacturer. Coming to automotive manufacturing. Automotive industry currently faces the challenges arising out of stricter fuel economy, emission standards, along with improvements in safety, growth of intelligent mobility, and the most important, the customer desires for integrating their lifestyles into the vehicle. So when OEMs, when the automakers face these challenges, they expect similar or maybe the suitable solutions from the auto component manufacturers. So what it tells us, these trends are causing a fundamental change in the vehicle technologies, requiring more innovations from the automakers as well as auto component makers. And when we adopt the new technologies and innovations in our products and in our processes, it definitely will call for more skilled labor, more knowledge, more technology transfer, and most importantly, more collaborations with each other. So in case of auto components, we need to have a good collaboration between the component makers and the automakers. So coming back to the topic of this discussion, I will come to the first question. What are the key challenges faced by automotive suppliers currently in terms of dealing with the increasing pressures to improve operational performance while maintaining the costs and at the same time meeting the escalating OEM requirements, be it Indian or global, multiple configurations and regulatory framework? So I will start with Mr. Ravi Karul. If you can share your views on this. What are the key challenges faced by automotive suppliers currently?
Yeah, very good evening. And I'll start with the basic hygiene factors, what automotive OEMs look at the component suppliers, like QCD, which is all given. We need to give that whatever is as per requirement of quality, cost, delivery. Beyond that, meeting the safety standards, meeting the emission standards or environmental standards, meeting the quality systems like TS 16949. But this is all basic at today, and I think that without that we cannot be just a supplier itself. But moving from a supplier to a sort of preferred supplier, I think what we need to look at is QCD gets replaced by PQCDDM. So many letters get added, and automotive manufacturers, they say in different words, but finally they want this. So it starts with even the performance, quality, cost, delivery. It comes beyond that, the development. That is where the new product development, what we are talking about, reducing the time or getting much more flexible new product development process. Then the last thing is about the management. How we are dealing with the changing world and how agile we are to meet the various requirements. Going forward, auto OEM also expect a lot of technology development at the supplier end, because everybody is now concentrating on what is their core competence. Auto OEMs look at making the whole vehicle, integrating all the components and trying to give a product to end user which works for the kind of need it has, or the kind of job he wants to get it done or she wants to get it done from the vehicle. And from that, what they expect from the automotive suppliers is that the supplier design, development, testing, all that the supplier should take care. So we need to have as a suppliers the design capability, development capability, validation capability. So, and getting on to the new product requirements, we need to have much more faster development. We need to have much accelerated validation, then rapid prototyping, lot of computer-aided engineering to do a sort of prediction analysis of how the component or product is going to behave, rather than waiting for it to fail in the field. So those are there. Apart from that, the next challenge what we have is the kind of new standards that are coming up in Indian industry is phenomenal. Especially now we are talking about combined brake systems and anti-lock braking systems coming up in 2018. 2020 we are going to have BS6 norms, and these are going to be quite challenging aspects for automotive suppliers. And rather than being reactive, that once OEM asks and then we give some solutions. As a supplier, I think we need to start looking at it upfront and give solutions before even OEM asks. I think these are some of the things. I'm sure many things will come up as we move forward.
Yeah, Mr. Deshpande, would you like to add some?
Yeah. Good evening. There are main three challenges which I feel are very important. That it's a continual change demand by our customers. Maybe it's engineering change, maybe it's quantity change, maybe it's development change. So this is a continuous process. So development once done is not complete. So it demands for a continuous change. The second challenge I feel is the variety of the parts which one company has to deal with. The variety of components or variety of parts along with the complexity of the numbers. Like you may have to sell 5 numbers per day or from 5 numbers per day to almost 2000 numbers per day. So that complexity is there. So that's a challenge always auto component business faces. And the third is most important that recently what is happening is that the product life cycle for the OEMs is reduced. So the part supplier also has to face that cycle of the product. So ultimately these are the three main challenges which I feel are very important. So
yeah, Mr. Doshi.
Good evening. Good evening. I think fewer points covered by both, but I have to add some point. Either component change, process change, engineering change is happening everywhere, and because of that we are suffered a lot. But another one is the cost. Every auto component OE is that every time he is asking about the cost also. So I think we have to improve the employees' capability, educationally background, and experience background and automations. It is the one of the key part for this change. So, thank you.
Yeah, I will ask now Mr. Javed Ahmed, who will represent OEM because with his experience in Tata Motors and Perkins, what do you think can be the challenges from thrown by OEMs to automotive manufacturers?
Good evening, everyone. So I will give slightly, holistic view of the entire gamut of relationship between an OEM and a supplier. So really, it starts from, OEM who would like to be the first to the market with the most competitive, best design product, etc., and he's out there to scout some sources. So the initial portion obviously will depend upon the source capabilities that they have. And obviously there again, the entire gamut of things like, okay, what's the commodity that supplier is handling, how he's financially good, and somebody talked about basic hygiene factor of SQCDM, whether he will be able to, be a partner, represent the OEM in the international market, whether he'll be able to sustain the challenges in terms of quick change of design or ramp up to a higher capacity, etc. Then, okay, it goes through a well-defined international, say, process, whether it is a QS-based system or APQP system, a PPAP system, etc., when you get registered and you start supplying. And then what comes is that the OEM is, of course, catering to his market, catering to the vagaries of the market, competition, shrunk product life cycle. He has to change in technology, disruptive technology. Now, I remember when I joined as a graduate engineer in Tata Motors, and I was asked this question in the interview: how can you improve the efficiency of the truck? Okay, and one of the things that, okay, being, somebody, I said, okay, I'll reduce the weight of the truck. And they said, okay, give some examples of components. So then I gave, okay, I will improve the strength of the steel by using a microalloyed steel. Or I think the most thing that I could think at that point of time is aluminum cylinder head cover. The world has completely changed. Now you have, everything. Madam Kelkar talked about composites, talked about 3D printing, talked about, everything, fiber. We don't know what is coming. And we are living in that kind of a VUCA world. Okay. Now here, the automotive supplier has to survive. And obviously, he will require everything. Everything, meaning deep pockets, great technology, skilled employees, ability to integrate with the supplier, ability to design his own, products which are cost down, great in design, and everything. So, I think, and although I have worked for a long time in various, functions, but I think the entire technology support, in terms of, when I say technology support, really I mean the entire gamut in terms of digitalization, in terms of robotics, and everything. You cannot live without that these days. If I go to a supplier and he doesn't have, say, 3D, facility, etc., and he says, okay, I will, give me some time so that I develop the toolings from, doing some experiments, etc., he's not part of the game. So I think, we are living in a time where if you have to survive, you have to have the entire gamut of your assets, good people, and also a mindset of delivering, the best quality service, the best delivery service to the OEMs.
That's quite well observation. I will now turn to Mr. Sachin Sanghi. You have heard both from the auto component suppliers, from the OEMs. So what are your observations? You have worked with a lot of automotive suppliers earlier. So what are your observations in this?
Yeah, good evening, everybody. All of these are... Yeah, good evening, everybody. I think very well relevant points everybody has made. One of the conversations that I often hear on both sides, auto OEMs have another thing that is coming and hitting a lot of suppliers, and that is the consolidation strategy. So a lot of their sourcing strategy is now moving towards, they are having targets that every year I need to reduce 10% of the number of suppliers I deal with. And the other challenge, like it was mentioned, is at the same time, they also want the supplier to take over the most difficult tasks. So for example, as mixed material manufacturing is going to come into our lines, this will be the first time someone will do. Eventually there will be cars that will be made of iron, steel, and fiber composites together. And joining these two different materials is not a very easy job. And OEMs are expecting the suppliers to come to the table with techniques, with innovations, with investments that will help them, that will make them say that if I'm consolidating my supplier base, now they're looking at with whom should I consolidate. And they're expecting that the supplier will stand up and say that, look, I can do this, I can do I'm ready for mixed material manufacturing, for example. So consolidation and new technology, I think, are the two key areas.
Okay. I think after understanding the challenges, I think we should look little bit inwards in terms of the manufacturing processes, in terms of designing a product. So what should be the ideal strategies and probably the steps to improve on the productivity of your design, your product development processes, as well as manufacturing processes, so that all the processes, all the manufacturing, it can operate faster, it can deliver better with more constant or consistent product quality, and which can minimize the life cycle cost, and at the same time it can be flexible to accommodate the changes. I think Mrs. Kelkar only mentioned that all of a sudden there is a change in the requirements from the OEMs. So your auto component manufacturer should be ready to take those changes and define your manufacturing system in such a way so that it can synchronize with the OEM requirements. So what are the strategies to be taken to make your manufacturing, make your design, make your development flexible, faster and innovative? So I will ask to Mr. Joshi first. I can take the mic.
Actually, sir's question is very interesting. Hello. Sorry. Sir's question is very interesting, and I want to suggest for every areas, please make a concrete solution to each and every process. Then we go for next development ideology, and then the development and your total process has to be synchronized, and then we have to make it simplest with educated, trained manpower, and then it will be happen. It's a very small way.
Okay, Mr. Khalil, you have your comments on this.
I think what is more required is a CFT approach for the NPD process as such. Because earlier it used to happen in sort of a different departments, like designer will put the design and others will give that. But I personally feel that the way it is going, in most of the OEMs have already gone on ahead into this aspect of CFT based NPD teams, whereas the suppliers are yet to gear up for that, and that is one of the say basic needs today. If you look at it, I personally believe that even though being a designer, I think design is too important a function to leave it to designers only. And that is why the importance of the taking inputs at the early stage, the concept stage itself, from all the stakeholders, including whether it is a tier 2, tier 3 suppliers or the operations people, production people, quality, all people, they have to join together and do. Next thing what is important is the well-structured NPD process, which again in OEMs it is already in operation for almost a decade now. Whereas in at the supplier end, it is not that well structured way it is happening. And that's why the structured NPD process with the stage gate reviews, with a dedicated team, that is important thing. Apart from that, what is more important is that how do we reduce the product development time? And that is where, as I earlier also mentioned, how we are reducing the time, how we are going one step beyond what is the product is supposed to do. I think rather than working on whatever is our automotive component supplier or other products, that the function, rather than that, we need to look at what is the job it is supposed to do at the end user. And the moment we look at that, so many new things come up. And that if those are envisaged at the design stage itself, I think a lot of problems we later on face can be taken care in the beginning itself. So the proactive approach for the design is quite important. Learning from the past, of course, the past failures, it should be a sort of a mandatory line that whatever the failure earlier occurred should not reoccur. And giving a robust, structured way to looking at problems and problem solving is again need of the hour, which many places, automotive suppliers, we come out with some problem solution, we try to implement that and go away with that, rather than getting onto the root cause of it. And also that is another area where I feel a lot of importance has to be given when it comes to product development. Next thing is related to innovation, because every time, see, customer doesn't want the same product what we are given earlier to now. Otherwise, why will he need the new product? So with the new product, he certainly wants certain either improvements to be done or the new job to be done in a different way. So to address that, the suppliers need to get on to innovation at the early stage and continuously improve on whether it is a cost or it is a weight or performance, all that. And simple thing is that either I think whatever we are doing it today, we need to get little faster, little better, little cheaper. That probably is a simple mantra for innovation. And another thing is that quick trials, like fail fast, fail cheap. If these things we adopt, we can get on much better way into the innovation domain also.
Yeah, that's correct. Mr. Deshpande, you have been working with two-wheeler industry in India as well as few companies abroad. So what are the strategies and initiatives taken by your company to accommodate the sudden changes required from the OEMs?
Okay. Few strategies and initiatives we have taken to cope up these challenges. First is normally what we get is drawings or models from our customer, and then we have to develop our tooling So what our approach is to make modular or parametric tooling, and these toolings can be then extrapolated to various product lines. So we have almost 6 to 7 types of product lines, and for each line we have a typical type of tooling model which we use, in which most of the times we make the standardization of our child parts which are going into toolings. So that helps us in quick changing when there is a change required or engineering change required for the particular component in development stage. In manufacturing, we started with putting up fixed lines for the particular products. Then eventually what happened is, on same lines we wanted to make few different models. So we have differently designed and changed the layout so that we can start manufacturing same product on this about 2 to 3 products on same line. So that flexibility we have brought in by using robotic manufacturing, robotic welding options and cells which we have installed. So this is the way we have taken challenges in manufacturing. Of course, important is people. People at appropriate location is always important. So we have tried to incorporate one kind of analysis of a person. So those who are involved in manufacturing, we have done genetic intelligence analysis for particular key people so that we understand their behavior, we understand their idea of thought process, and accordingly we can place them into the system. So that definitely helped us in last 2 years that we have restructured ourselves. So the flexibility came in by appropriately placing people in the location. And the last one is definitely we should develop an ability to understand what is next. So that is very important. We cannot stop just like that by changing today. We have to develop, each and every supplier has to develop ability to understand what is going next. Thank you.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. Sachin, I would come to you. Like what Mr. Deshpande mentioned about predicting what will happen next, what new technologies or what new expectations will come from OEMs. So how will you advise or address this kind of situation to predict or to anticipate the changes in the requirements, as well as to improve the existing processes, existing design development processes, and have some kind of earlier realization of innovations or earlier realization of validation?
Yeah, absolutely. And like we heard, so I think absolutely, like we heard, that cross-functional collaboration has become very necessary in order to be able to take these new requirements and respond to them quickly. But I think the next frontier is not just cross-functional. Now, cross-disciplinary collaboration is also very important. You cannot afford to have in any development environment only one cross-functional team, manufacturing, purchasing. Now you have to have different cross-disciplinary teams as well. You need to have sales people, marketing people, analysis people. Different functions have to be put together, because that is where you can gain some more, you can find some more opportunities to be faster than the next person who's working on it. Beyond that, when we talk about the other challenges, OEMs have done new product development, and we are all very tuned to making sure that we make that process very efficient. And I think a lot of suppliers have changed that a little bit, and that's a survival technique almost. Is it has to be new product introduction. Correct. Today, just doing new product development faster is really not helping. There are still some who are going further and saying new product introduction, which adds the manufacturing development also, so that you debug the entire manufacturing process along with the product development. There are some companies that are also looking at it a step further, and they're saying that I have a RFQ in the market, but what is the time to money? Unless and until I can predict that when will I start shipping out X number of parts and start invoicing them for that. I need to look at that as a metric. And if I don't measure that, then I'm risking, either not growing as fast as the other guys are growing. The other challenge also from the business side that I see coming with the suppliers, Mrs. Kelkar mentioned that if you're not global, then you really need to have probably plan B and plan C. This is putting a lot of load on suppliers to have dispersed marketing organizations, dispersed sales organizations, dispersed services organization. And I think that also has to be factored in as companies are responding to these fast changing requirements of the customers, because they expect you to be very close to them to understand their requirements.
Okay. Now, after understanding the challenges and after understanding the strategies required to make you more innovative, more flexible, I think we need to also concentrate on the collaborations. How can the collaborations from automotive component manufacturers be more effective, be more, more efficient with the OEMs, with the automakers? So, I will ask the panelists, what would be your views on maximizing the collaborations with OEMs for enhancing productivity, for enhancing the effectiveness of the processes, effectiveness of the products, and also the flexibility. So how can you achieve those maximum collaborations with OEMs so that there is no gaps in terms of the quality, in terms of the cost, in terms of the added features, in terms of the functionalities? So how do you ensure that? So as Mr. Javed would be representing the OEMs, I will ask first to him, what would be your opinion on maximizing the collaborations with the component manufacturers?
So, the entire... So the entire design and development process, suppose, whether you take just the design and development or NPI, that means including introduction, manufacturing, and the introduction, etc. So it's an entire cycle, and the earlier you partner with your suppliers, the better are the chances that you will beat the market and the cycle time. More often than not, what happens is that while you have a very structured methodology adopted at the OEMs, but the suppliers do not have that kind of capability, that kind of manpower, etc. So a lot depends also upon the suppliers to upgrade their manpower, their skills, etc., so that they can work along with the OEM at a very early stage and participate in the entire structured methodology of improvement. And the entire, the thought process that we can have stakeholder participation, concurrent manufacturing, etc., will depend upon how the supplier is able to participate in the process. Of course, this implies that they have the capability, they have the softwares, so that they can download any software which is required. They can do their part, trials and errors. They can be given targets in terms of costs and quality, efficient processes, etc. It has no end, what kind of collaboration can happen. And it is also happening in the market. So there also, I think, technology comes in a lot of handy. And if you look at the basics, whether you are on a group where how efficiently and fast you are able to share, the drawing, the design, as well as progresses, all those things do matter. And the game, of course, is that either side should be willing to participate and contribute and ensure that both of them win in the marketplace.
Yeah, Mr. Joshi, how can you make your collaborations with OEMs more productive, more fruitful, and more engaging?
First of all, I have to suggest OEM to supplier. First share the drawings, development status quo, and another two links, and what is the process is. What the process is there, they all share to our supplier And we have to assist the supplier also. This is a capable supplier or not. He have infrastructure. He have all arrangement for my product or not. And then we have to suggest him if there is a lack of point. We have to suggest he has to improve first time. Then his improvement by my team, and that team will be suggest how to do the process fast. There is the 3 point is very important. The one of the time bonding, then the cost and development period. It is the basic 3 points required to my supplier. And when they are fulfilled, then we have to go by the process in the next stage. I suggest to my supplier every time and every moment, you have to ahead of 2 stage for others. So we will go fast development and quick change also.
Yeah, Mr. Karul, you just mentioned earlier that we shouldn't wait for OEMs to come with the requirements and then start collaborating, but we should have some initiative from the component manufacturers to offer something innovative to OEMs and then start collaborating. So what are your observations or what are your thought process? How do you make it to achieve it, to maximize the collaboration?
Yeah, the need of the hour is like we as the suppliers need to move from sort of build to print manufacturers to a sort of development partners. So how do we do the partnering efforts with our customers? And for that, what is important is that not only to understand what is the product requirement as stated by the customers, but probably we need to go a little beyond and see what are the latent needs of the product, of the OEM as a customer, and more than that as an end user. So rather than only restricting our interactions to the customers or the OEMs, I certainly feel that it is important that the suppliers do have at least sort of some kind of feel or of what the market needs, what the end user needs. See, when the OEM wants to develop a new product, it's not that he wants to develop it just because he wants to develop a new product. He wants to do certain improvement. He wants to try to solve certain problems which either his product or earlier other competitor products have. When he is trying to solve this problem, if we need to understand that, I think then we need to translate that end user requirement into the product specification and through a structured approach. There are a structured approach available like house of quality or the quality tables, what we talk about, or then from there coming out to the critical to quality parameters. So if you follow that structured parameter, probably will be able to give much better than what customer wants. We need to go from giving him the customer whatever is required, but getting on to the customer delight. I think that is one approach we need to look at.
Mr. Deshmane.
Hello. Yeah, I agree with Mr. Ravi that you have to be initiative. You have to take initiative and meet your customer with certain alternative processes or maybe alternative materials to study the manufacturability of the products which designer is designing at a very early stage always helps to reduce the iterations of the samples or to reduce the iterations of the development period. That always helps. So the alternating, so what supplier needs to have as the knowledge of different kind of materials, then different kind of processes so that it can be discussed with the designer. And ultimately then the collaboration with the designer with these different ideas of manufacturability always helps. We also work on how this can be achieved. So I feel that a consistent effort in innovation is always required. So you need to continually improve your processes. Every time you have to add fresh value, thinking that what I can do today better than yesterday. So that if we follow that idea and if we continuously add fresh value, then that message definitely is will always be taken by our customers. Then they come back to you again to discuss on the new products and parts. Of course, lastly, I would like to mention that suppliers should proactively work out on the VAV proposals. That's the buzzword every time we listen from our customers, and we practically run away from that point that, okay, why I should share my profitability with the customer. But ultimately, if you don't change, then somebody else will change, and then you will lose over the period. So that's it. So thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I was discussing with Sachin just before the event. He gave some examples of Continental and I think Maruti Suzuki. So maybe if you can share that experience about this supplier and OEM collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a very good case study with one of our customers, which is Continental Engines, and they were asked to integrate a start-stop system. In the OEM said that when the vehicle is stationary, stop the engine, and once it starts again, then give it the power so that it becomes more efficient. And at this point, they use some technology, and they just by just not finishing their task, and like Mr. Karul said, they went above and beyond, and they said that by applying this system, I can predict for your model what amount of emissions of CO2 will come out of the engine. While they were not really asked to do, they were just asked to integrate a start-stop system. And the reason they were able to do that is now technologies are available where without fear of, the OEM will not give you the data, but you can carry out one-dimensional simulation today. You can take available parameters which are published specs of it could be an XUV 500, for example, and you have all the specs. You can put them in a model and run them and test your design, go back to the OEM and tell them that, look, I understand what you're going to do next with it. I understand how the whole vehicle is going to get impacted. And here my job is done. And by the way, this is what your emissions are going to look like by integrating the system. And that I think really helps. The other point that I was discussing with Shekhar is, especially in India, there is a lot of concern from anybody to share something, For some reason, except for advice, which we share, like no man's business, like it's going out of fashion, but everything else we sometimes don't like to share. So Maruti has come up with a very interesting solution for that. The data that they give their suppliers to download is specific to a person as well as their machine. So I could be a supplier, we could be from the same company, but if the data is meant for me as a designer, I have to tell Maruti beforehand. Then if it is for me and Shekhar, then only our machines will open it. And if we change our machines, we have to go back to Maruti and say that, make this file open on some other machine. So there are various ways, some culture-specific initiatives that need to be taken. One point I would like to add to make the collaboration more engaging. I think there are a couple of areas that are really very favorite now with our, we as Siemens also, the OEM is our customer. Just like auto components go and sell to OEM, we are also in the same band. We are also going and telling them that we can solve all your problems and, buy from us and not the other guys. So doubling the fuel economy and lowering the weight. This is absolutely an area where every OEM is interested. If you can link your product that you're doing to the vehicle energy management, to the vehicle weight, I think they're interested in listening to you. Second comes all the electrical content that is there in the vehicle. More and more mechanical content is coming down and it's getting replaced by mechatronics. So there are examples in Indian OEM where they have taken this development of, let's say, electronic control units, and OEM said that I don't do it, but I want Bosch and Delphi to do it. And once I see that they developed it and I've put it on my 4 vehicles, I will get that knowledge back from them, because they don't have the time and the money to invest in that. So anybody who comes up with cross-disciplinary mechatronics development, I think OEMs are very interested in listening to that. And flexibility, so the mass customization, manufacturing in lot sizes of 1. That's also another key area of competitiveness that auto suppliers can really get the attention of the OEM.
Okay. You just mentioned about the data security. So can you just throw some light on that? Because in India, at least, as you mentioned, sharing the data is always the problem, because people would like to be a confidential thing.
So I think, yeah, that's, thank you for that question. It's a very relevant question. So data security is now very heavily dependent on the technology that you use. And I think automotive industry will sort of relearn that from the defense industry. Now we work with a lot of defense companies. And just to take a quick minute, a lot of the defense contracts that are going out in the market in India, they are forcing adversaries to come together. Because, the government says that you should have 1,000 acres of land and you should have so much infrastructure. And these companies don't have that. So while they are adversaries, they come together and then they bid for projects. There are projects like tactical command system, battlefield management system. These are very famous defense projects that are currently being given out. And you will see Tata and L&T, which are absolute adversaries, they have come together. And we can take a cue from there. Now, they all want to safeguard their IP like no man's business, but they have to come together and work. And they're using technology solutions which allow people to collaborate in an environment, and only that portion of the data that you're supposed to see, you will see that. And only that portion of the data that you are supposed to change, you will be able to change. All this while in the same environment. So all of us are logging into the same system, but depending on our credentials, I can mark out this is my IP, make this a black box, and then let the interface happen. So I think technology is the way to ensure that data security is also maintained, and the collaboration is also not hampered.
So you mean the data security will not affect the collaboration efforts?
Yeah, absolutely not. Yeah. Today there is absolutely no impact on collaboration just because I have to keep my data secure.
Okay.
That problem is solved.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, Mr. Kharul, you have been in the designing and technology development. So what would be your observations or your thoughts on the data security?
I think from the data security point of view, it is important from two aspects in my opinion. One is with respect to OEMs, and supplier will normally have say 2-3 different OEMs or more. So always OEM is concerned about how my data will be confidential and clear. So that is where this he was also mentioning about the software tools, what we have, various tools which we can make good use of and ensure that the data security is well maintained. Today we have got a facility, especially at our end, what we do is that we have got 3 to 4 product ranges, and each product category we manage data totally differently. So the one design team cannot access even the other design team data. Not only that, even outside the design department, data availability is totally secured, and then that will be available only on need to know basis or based on only when the design person wants to give it to OEM or to the tier 2 supplier based on the requirement. Another thing is that the aspect where the data security is required is when we do a lot of innovation, always there is a concern that whether my data will get leaked and someone else will also do. Because whatever innovation we do, we have only 6 months window, if at all. Like once the product comes into the market, anybody can again look at it and do something better than that. Now if that information leaks when the product is getting developed itself, then it creates a problem. So another important thing for which I think especially automotive suppliers need to gear up themselves is how do they take care of their intellectual property. And that is one of the important things, because today OEMs, they take care of themselves very well. They have got a IP cell, and that cell will take care whether it is a new development that has happened, they will try to patent it, they will try to publish some papers, so that all the domain, what knowledge they have created, that will get secured. But same thing need to be followed at the supplier end also. How do we ourselves have developed an IP cell the last 4 years now, and all new designs and innovations, we first try to patent it, and then only the ideas are given to even various customers and all. So that is another way I think we should protect our data security.
Okay, yeah, that's quite interesting. Now, when we decide to have some changes in your product portfolio or in your production processes as an auto component manufacturer, how do you realize or how do you anticipate the impact of those changes in your product and those changes in your product development process and manufacturing processes? So how do you analyze or realize that impact on the requirements of OEMs? So it can be in terms of some changes made on your own, not as per the requirements of OEMs, but with your initiatives. You have made some changes in your product or in your processes. So how do you analyze that impact on the OEMs or on OEMs' decisions to work with you, Mr. Deshpande?
Normally what happens is we, as I said, that continual improvement is required. So we go on developing and finding out new ways of doing the things in a different manner. So the processes are developed. And definitely I feel that we should have a collaborative approach to discuss with our OEMs and customers about those processes which we adopt subsequently, because ultimately the output of the product through those processes are more important. And when you discuss and share those details with the customer, I think that gains the confidence of OEM with the supplier. So that's how we normally focus on.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Javed, what would be your views on if there are some changes made from the supplier side in their products or in their manufacturing processes? From the OEM point of view, how do you look at those changes?
So for us, from the OEM point of view, obviously every part goes through a PPAP methodology, and therefore any change which needs to be done has to be approved. So there is a change notification and approval process, etc. It's very important. And to the extent that we would analyze, we will ask for an analysis of 5M, man, material, method, etc., so that we understand what is the impact of the same, whether on cost, capacity, or consistency in quality, everything. And that is one area where there is always a lot of friction. Because if on the ground, reality is in India, suppliers, there will can be a turnover of employees, new person, not trained, or some machine gone on a breakdown, so okay, take circuitous route, go to some other machines, etc., without informing the OEM. So those are a strict no-no. But there are challenges, and one cannot police it. So I think we expect that the suppliers, as such, they understand the importance of reliability and consistency and trust, which is there, because at the end of it, it has to be a PPAP product, and any change has to go through at least a notification and assessment of what are the risks involved.
Okay, Mr. Joshi.
As a PPAP document is required, sir. Mention it. As per PPAP document, we have to follow the all process. Actually, I am not OEM and I am supplier to OEM, because just that document we have to follow, prepare as per his requirement and supply to him. But they are mentioning that the trust systems and manpower change. We are maintaining there the manpower change. We are not more depend on manpower change. We are if we are making a small changes of automation and small toolings and developments in your machines and etc., then manpower change is not affected to that product. It is very sure. But yes, manpower change, more manpower change is the bad practice for our organization also. And we will to give the insurance. Yes, as per PPAP and first piece approval, we have to supply to OEM and satisfy to him. And continuously we are touchy with the quality department with OEM and our quality departments. So, thank you.
Mr. Khalil, you have anything to add on this?
See, when we talk about changes both, whether supplier making the changes and OEM making the changes. Both sides. First thing is that, and that has been observed many times, that when the product is almost coming to the nearing panel stages, we are ready to mass produce, and suddenly OEM comes with change. And at such time, to manage with that kind of change and the kind of other implications of that are very difficult to manage, and at that time it puts a lot of stress not only on the design team but also on the manufacturing team and all. So that is one part of aspect. Second thing is that when the supplier is making changes, if that is due to sort of a capability issue and then the changes are being made, then it certainly costs a lot. So what as a supplier we need to look at is that first thing is that this being our product, we should not depend on customer to take decisions for our product. We should have our own in-house strength and capabilities developed such a way that we start taking decisions for our product. Because if we are working 8 hours on the product and customer is maximum 1 hour on the product for our product, I think we should develop that capability that we know the product better than him. But the applicability is known better to them. But as a product, individual product, we know better. So the changes related to product should get influenced by the supplier. That is first thing. Second thing, all said and done, changes do come. And how do we manage change is very important. And that is where we need to have the strict adherence to the quality management system. And there is no, say, shortcut to that. We need to have to follow the engineering change management system without any shortcuts. I think that's the key for this.
Yeah, okay. I want to share maybe one experience which I got while attending one panel discussion recently from IMTMA, where I was one of the panelists. And the topic was smart manufacturing, whether India is ready for that. Little away from what we are discussing, but it's still relevant. One of the topics which was discussed very widely and for a long time was Indian Jugaad. So whether Indian Jugaad is the confirmed innovation, whether it's the kind of innovation. Because with Indian Jugaad, like as we discussed, that there is sudden requirement from the OEMs that, okay, let's change this, let's change some functions, let's change some features, let's change some components. So sometimes it may not be possible for component manufacturer to change it immediately, to make that change, because that change probably will require different manpower, different technology, different infrastructure. But we Indians are probably good in getting that thing done with the help of some Jugaad. So whether, just question out of my mind, probably as I said, it will be away from the context, but it's still relevant. So are there any such incidences happening in auto component industry that if there is sudden change in requirement, so our auto component industry, are there some Jugaad happening where the work is getting done finally, but it may not be a part of your standard procedure? So what do you say about that, Mr. Deshpande?
This is the experience about, let's say, 10 years back. Not relevant to today's situation, but it happened with our customer. That customer was ready with the product and they wanted to introduce something new than because of the competition. And then they offered to develop and design the component on the vehicle itself rather than having drawing first and then the component. So what we got is the vehicle, complete vehicle to at our end, and then we developed a component which would suit to the vehicle. And subsequently it was a reverse engineering, and on that basis it was completely out of Jugaad. But finally that was converted into drawing and the proper way the product we manufactured. Jugaad is definitely required at the prototyping stage. A lot of prototyping is being done with a Jugaad system, and finally, but it should be properly made after once you want to accept that as a component or a part, you should go for a drawing and then proper development of the product again.
Okay, it's the approved Jugaad, you can say.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Kharul, you have something to say on this?
I think Jugaad is part of the game, no doubt about it. And now if you look at it like this, like when a person, suppose there is an accident and the person gets admitted to hospital, first thing is to give it saline, rather than talking about what happened, why you could have avoided and you could have done this and all. That is not required, right? You need to see that thing is functioning. When we look at even at the vehicle level, when the vehicle fails, the service mechanic, what he does and how he manages the customer that time is very important. What he has to do is a lot of Jugaad there.
Yes.
And I have seen, earlier prior to Endurance, I was working with OEMs for almost 25 years. And during that, we have seen many times the kind of solutions this come from mechanics was so phenomenal, and it's kind of Jugaad, and they will try to manage the customer at that moment. That is very important. When it comes to the next, then okay, when you try to give the first cut solution by Jugaad. But what is important for suppliers as well as OEMs is that not stopping there, then we do the second and third level of actions. And then the third level action is what will sustain not only for this product, but for coming product, the kind of problem will not happen. So always Jugaad is a part of the game, but that is for the only, just to take care of that moment, I believe.
It's kind of temporary solution. Okay. Okay, just wrapping up the things, we have discussed about the challenges and then found out the strategies or initiatives or steps required to make your systems more productive, flexible and faster. Then strategies for effective collaboration, maximizing collaboration between component suppliers as well as the OEMs. And of course the impact of the manufacturing decisions on the OEM partnership. So in just briefly or in 1 or 2 lines or maybe 3 points if we want to describe, what should be the roadmap to have a proper collaboration between the suppliers and OEMs to make your systems, to make your development process flexible, easily affordable at low cost, at the same time ensuring the quality which is required, I will say global quality, which is required by the customer. So I will start with Mr. Joshi. How will you just summarize the roadmap?
We have to summarize. I will summarize the next roadmap like first, the faster. The first question is the faster. Faster the OEMs are sending the drawings, then component supplier are able to read that properly and develop that properly, and then he has to implement that properly, and again send to this first piece of approval to OEM, and then go for the production. It is the fastest. But any every stage, we have to require the knowledge, then infrastructure, and then some experienced peoples to them. It is the fastest way to develop that product.
Okay, Mr. Javed.
So in my opinion, the OEM and the suppliers are part of a team to win in the marketplace. OEM being the front, maybe who's going to win against a very, very competitive market. And I think the tagline should be collaboration. So what all can we do to really collaborate and also have the mindset to collaborate, not only in the form of upskilling the technology so that, you can, at the, flick of a button, you should be able to communicate, this is my red line drawing, or this is my CAD 3D diagram, or this is my result of my prototyping or testing, etc. But also it should be there in the mindset. There can be changes. There can be last minute changes. How prepared am I to tackle the last minute changes? So it's all about collaboration. Use everything that you have in your kit, including technology, including skilled manpower, including idle benches, idle capacity, and also mostly mindset that together you will have to win against a competitive market.
Yeah, Mr. Kharu.
I think the fastest way to do this is co-creation. So whatever we do has to be done, because otherwise the supplier can keep developing their own products and all that, and customer may not need it even. So from that point of view, it is important that whatever all the development projects we take up, all that should be in requirement with the customer. There has to be a joint development program jotted down, not for this year, next year, but for next 5 years at least. And then jointly working towards solving a critical problem, what we envisage, or critical improvement, what we are looking at. So I think co-creation is the easy way to go for it.
Yeah, that's quite effective. Mr. Deshpande?
Solution provider experience to customer. Continuous capability upgradation. And the third point I would like to add is the add fresh value regularly.
Yeah, perfect. Sachin?
Yeah, I think, there are three things that I would like to say in order to improve the collaboration with the with our customers. I think we need to make certain strategic investments. And there are two kinds of strategic investments that would be necessary. One, like Javed said, we have to make an investment in competencies of the people. The second, investments need to be made in tools and technologies. It doesn't need to be from only one company or the other. But enterprise information technology backbone, it needs to be invested in. There is just no doubt about it, because that is your base. Along with adoption of this, what comes is now if you do adopt these, if you have competencies and if you adopt enterprise architectures, enterprise IT backbone, it forces you to adopt standardized processes.
Yeah, that's correct.
And with that comes even something more difficult. Adopting processes is still easy, but you use the word Jugaad. It's good and bad, both. I don't know if it is more good or more bad. Adherence to that processes then cannot be Jugaad.
Correct.
So those who are maintaining the discipline of adopting these processes and adhering to the processes, because it will take you longer. Adhering to the processes will take away your ability to quickly respond. But I think that's the hard choice we need to make.
Yeah, that's correct.